Thinking about buying a franchise? Then the How to Buy a Franchise show is just for you. Here's your host, Dr. John Hayes.
Hi, I'm John Hayes. I blog at howtobuyafranchise.com. And today for the How to Buy a Franchise show, I'm interviewing Red Boswell, who's the Chief Growth Officer in the Americas for Expense Reduction Analysts. Welcome, Red. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
So tell me, if it's Expense Reduction Analysts, I'm going to tell you, I've seen that name for years at franchise expos that I've attended, and I always thought they must be accountants who look at expenses all the time, and they help small businesses recover money, and that's not what it's about at all. So I found out that ERA is a whole different business, and it says analyst in the title, so I'm thinking, or in the name, so I'm thinking, well, I've got to be an analyst to become a franchisee, but that's not the case.
We really
Tell us the story.
We've evolved quite a bit, thank you. You know, first of all, you're right. That's our name, Expense Reduction Analysts. You analyze expenses for companies. And yes, we do, but it's not small companies normally. Our average size client really is in the 50 to 80 million annual revenue range. We work with clients as small as 10 million, as big as 10 billion plus, but that sweet spot for us is really in the give or take 100 million range in annual revenue. And then the analyst word, analyst by itself tends to denote a lower level individual. Well, our franchisees are typically senior executives. They are seasoned professionals in the world of business. And so, yeah, we do analyze expenses, but some don't do any of that. That's the biggest surprise or misconception about our opportunity. See, the culture of ERA is to focus on your highest level activities, what you're best at, what you enjoy, and what you're going to make the most money at, and then bring in the other franchisees in the network to focus on what your core competencies aren't around. So you might get clients. You might build relationships with CFOs. Other franchisee might be a world-class expert in printing or small package freight or utilities or you name it. Any expense that a middle market or larger company might have, we bring in those world-class experts who are also franchisees to find that savings.
Okay, so we're going to get into a little bit more detail about that, but you're the Chief Growth Officer for the Americas.
Yes, sir.
So let's start there. How's growth?
Thanks for asking. I'm excited to say we have already exceeded last year's numbers. It's early in the year here, and we've already brought on more world-class experts and franchisees than we did all of last year. So it's looking very good. Both globally, we're seeing unprecedented growth, and in the Americas here, we're growing like we haven't seen in many years. So it's an exciting time to be with ERA.
So you keep saying world-class experts. And so that sort of leads me to believe that I've got to be one to become a franchisee. What if I'm not a world-class expert, or could I be one and I don't even know it?
Well, you need world-class integrity, I'll tell you that, and you certainly have that, but our franchisees do as well. So some franchisees are indeed experts. They built a career prior to coming to ERA in an expense category, perhaps like a gentleman I spoke to last week. He was a VP of a very large food services company, Nationwide Food Services. He was VP of logistics. Well, that gentleman could be an incredible expert in logistics, been at that VP role for 15 years. He's bought, he's sold, he's outsourced his distribution of these food services that he had to folks all over the continent. He could be a world-class expert, but guess what? He had a wonderful personality, very warm, great network, not afraid to speak to executives. He also could focus more on client acquisition. So we allow part of that cool thing about being an ERA franchisee. You lack some analytics, you've got the expertise, go for that. You like building relationships and bringing on clients at a high level, C-suite level, then focus there. Maybe you want to do some of both and you have the capabilities to do so. Bring it on.
But it sounds like you can compartmentalize your business. So, for example, let's say I've spent my life in, I don't know why I would, but, a different personality would love to spend their life analyzing office products and office supplies, which is a big cost center.
Absolutely.
For a $100 million, $10 million company. You're spending a lot on supplies for the office. And you discover that you've got this big expenditure, and so you bring somebody in, if you can find such a person, say, take a look at this for us. We're spending X on office supplies, and we want to spend Y. So maybe you hire somebody full-time to do that, or you'd be better off coming to ERA to find somebody who's spent their career analyzing office products.
Exactly right. Now, most of the time, our clients don't even realize the opportunity that's right under their noses.
Yeah.
They've got a great procurement team, and everybody's busy. They're loyal, they're hardworking, they're smart, they're talented, they know procurement. But what they don't know is that expertise for each category. You may have a company doing 80 million. Whether they're doing 8 million or 800 million, it doesn't matter. They simply could not afford to bring on an expert in every cost category. So they've got a wonderful procurement team that's doing a reasonably good job. Mm-hmm. But if you've got, let's just say conservatively, 10 expense categories that you're, as a CFO, spending 6 figures a year in, just 6, not even getting in the millions.
Yeah.
You're spending $500,000 times 10 categories.
So office supplies is a category.
Telecom, utilities,
printing,
merchant card, medical services.
mailing.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Any industry, they all spend significant dollars
Yeah.
on whatever.
Okay.
Banking service, you name it. So they've got 10 categories. That's pretty typical. 6 figures in expenditures per year. Maybe print, you're spending $250,000. Maybe in small package freight, you're spending $800,000. But it would be very unwise for you as a CFO to go hire someone, pay them $150,000, $200,000 a year. They're a world-class expert in freight, logistics, you name it, to save you 10 or 20%.
Yeah.
The math doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So we bring in those experts, and most importantly, the contingency model.
So remind me, we got to talk about the contingency model, but
Sure.
I'm still hung up on, as a franchisee,
Yeah.
I could be a world-class analyst, for example,
Yes.
who has spent my career analyzing 2 or 3 cost centers, and I know who the suppliers are
Sure.
in the industry.
Sure.
I know them by name. I know where you can save money by shipping, where you can save money by buying 3,000 pens rather than 100 pens at a time, or
Right.
whatever it
Right.
might be.
Exactly.
How you can do printing. By just changing the layout of what it is you're printing, you can save 30% of your printing bill. This is what analysts know how to do. So that can be a franchisee for you. That franchisee never has to knock on the door of a C-suite and says, Mr. Boswell, I'd like an opportunity to save you some money. Never, and that's not the sales pitch that your franchisees make, I realize,
Sure.
but you get the idea.
Yeah.
He never has. A lot of analysts say, look, I don't want to go out and talk to CFOs.
Yeah.
Just put me in a cubicle, or let me work at my home, or in my small business, or in my basement, or on the beach.
Amen.
Just give me my computer and give me the problem, and I'll save you 30% of what you're spending in these cost categories. That's a franchisee, right?
That is indeed a franchisee. And to be frank, we've got a bunch of great ones that
Yeah.
do that. In the U.S. alone, I've got around 160 franchisees. And about 60%, nearly 100, would call themselves category specialists. We don't use the word analyst so much. They're really a specialist in an expense category.
Okay, so that's one category or compartment.
Correct.
The other guy is the salesperson, guy or gal, because you have some women who are at the top of the network as well.
Absolutely do.
And they know, knock, knock, knock. Hello, Mr. CFO, I can save you some money. But I can do it for you. I'll prove it to you before you pay me anything. I'll do it on a contingency basis. How does that work?
Well, I'll hit the sales part. We don't really use the word sales.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be a dirty word for some folks.
Sure.
We see ourselves as a trusted advisor to the C-suite. Most of our business comes from referrals. We're not knocking on doors randomly cold. You can't get to a CFO knocking on a door or cold calling. Referrals and having a trusted network that can introduce you to those is key.
Yes.
We also do some speaking engagements. We do offer some direct marketing approaches, but between the referrals, the serving on panels, perhaps at a conference, the high-level C-suite type of introductions is really how we get that business.
Yeah.
Okay. That being said, the contingency model. There's no better model in the world from a purchasing standpoint. I don't pay you unless you succeed. There's no financial risk to the CFO. CFOs, conservative financial folks, they love that model.
Yeah.
So if they like you, you're the franchisee, they got introduced to you probably from a referral or a speaking engagement.
From a friend of theirs.
Yeah.
CFO to CFO.
Amen. Yeah, they like you. They like the ERA. It's a global consulting firm, 28-something countries, decades in business, 700 consultants globally, an impressive firm. And then lastly, who doesn't like a contingency model?
Yeah.
no financial risk. So it's not a hard sell. It's not a complicated sell. It's a pretty common sense. Why wouldn't I do this?
Yeah. But they particularly got to like the idea that the specialist is going to save them money in maybe 2 or 3 categories. And here they've been saying, if we only could raise another $3 million, we could do A, B, and C.
Yep.
Well, you don't have to raise it. We'll save it for you. Here's how.
That's exactly right. It's a very common conversation. Early in the process, our franchisees, remember, we're coming across as a trusted business advisor. So you're sitting there with the CFO and you're talking at a peer level about the strategic initiatives they're looking to fund. How might they be planning to fund that? You're not sitting there, let me save you money on your telecom. It's not that rah-rah backslapping approach. It's a very responsible, mature, caring approach. And in doing so, it opens the door to, let's review your general ledger. Let's discuss your accounts payables, and let's look at some of the low-hanging fruit that perhaps, no promises, no exaggerations, but perhaps we could find some significant savings for you.
Yeah. So I think it's important for people to realize this is the kind of conversation that we would have if I were a trusted advisor to the C-suite and you were a CFO. And I don't have to come in all rah with all the old sales techniques, as good as sales techniques are. In fact, I'm not really seeing myself as a salesperson. I'm seeing myself as a potential advisor to your company. And I don't know anything about office supplies or printing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know anything about that. I know about building relationships with CFOs because I was in the Chamber of Commerce before, or I was the VP, or I was a CFO, or I've been in business a long time, and I've got a pretty good old-term Rolodex. I got lots of contacts. I know people at the Chamber of Commerce. They're going to refer me. But yeah, you're spending a lot of money in printing. I'm not a printing specialist, but I know another franchisee who is a printing category specialist, and I will call her and see if she wants to help me save you some money. And I'll let her do the analyzing.
Except, you're exactly right, John, but we really don't say the F word, franchise. Yeah. We love that word. We're very proud of our ownership. Every consultant is an owner, a partner, if you will. And yet, the client, they don't know what franchising is half the time anyway. So they see you as a partner in a global consulting firm, and I'm going to bring in my experts, my analysts, however you want to address them, and they're going to look into the various areas we can save on money. Because what value do we bring? Yes, we bring that world-class expertise that the client can't afford or wouldn't pay for on their own. Yeah. Yes, but almost equally as important, we bring in significant influence on the purchasing power for that client. See, the client may be spending $50,000 or $500,000 in X, Y, and Z. We're representing hundreds and hundreds of clients that are spending $50 and $500 and $5 million. And so those suppliers out there, whether it be the big AT&Ts and Staples of the world or the smaller suppliers, they know ERA, and they take very good care of us, which then gives more profit back to the client. Yeah, everybody wins.
You get that buying power by nature of who you are, of the ERA name.
You think about the GPOs of the world, group purchasing organizations. They're all over and they're quite successful. We bring that kind of purchasing power, but you don't have to combine it with any other 50 other healthcare providers. We can do it one at a time because of the influence we have on the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't want to overuse the F word, but you do have to sell some Fs. You do have to sell some franchises.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How's that going? How does that work? And let me ask you, if I want to join up, how much money am I going to make? Is that a fair question?
It's a fair question. And I'll tell you, I view myself, and this is one of the reasons why I love ERA, I view myself as a trusted advisor as well. If a candidate ever feels I'm trying to sell them or close them, I hope they call me out on it. I'm there to advise them. I call myself a tour guide. I'm here to help you determine and see if it's a good fit, because guess what? It's sort of like a marriage. You don't want to get in a bad marriage. Yeah. So we're going to be together for a long time. Let's see if it's a good fit and we can all win together. How's it going? It's going fantastic. I was brought on a little under 2 years ago to really analyze analyst, to analyze the ERA opportunity, make sure it's as best it could be. I've worked with a lot of franchisors, and I fell in love with the ERA model. Low investment, work from home, no inventory, no brick and mortar, no employees required, residual income, significant income. So it's been a very fun ride, and last year versus this year, we've already doubled compared to what we were doing last year on new franchise partners. It's been a fun time, and it's getting better every day.
So you include an item 19 in your disclosure document, which is critical today for franchisors to be using an item 19. Tell us about that.
It is.
What's it look like?
It blows my mind that over half franchisors are still not using an item 19. It's the government allows us to, in the franchise disclosure document, have an item 19, which allows us to disclose auditable numbers, financial performance representations, as they call it. What can I make? What are people making? And yes, ours continues to rise and rise and rise. The top 20% of our network in the U.S., the bottom of that top 20%, so the worst of the top 20%, their income rose by $93,000 over this past year.
Wow.
Our top 20% is now $323 to $760,
wow,
and continues to rise.
Very good.
The average franchisee, and we got 160 of them, income for last year was $189. And a little disclaimer, that does include quite a few that are part-time. We've got some old school folks before we required it really be a full-time focus. They're still part-time, and yet our numbers are still that strong. Mm-hmm. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to brag about 189 because frankly I wouldn't be happy with that, and most folks I talk to are not happy with the average of 189. That's wonderful. That's a sign that I'm talking to the right guy or gal if they're not happy with an average of 189. Mm-hmm. Most are looking for considerably more than that, and as you can see, it's very attainable.
Yeah, but 189 is not horrible income for people. Lots of people would like to have that. But what kind of an investment is this going to require on my part to have the opportunity to be in your top tier, your top 20%?
Sure. Well, it's $59,900. $59,900 is the franchise fee. That does include, we don't nickel and dime our franchisees. That includes all the training, support, tools, technologies, you name it, it's included in there. We're not coming back later and saying, oh yeah, it's 5 or 10 or 20,000 more to get trained. Come on.
Yeah. So. And then the difficulty that many people have with franchising is the royalty that I've got to pay every month. Do I pay you a royalty every month at ERA?
Certainly do. The royalty for ERA is 15% in the U.S. and Canada.
15% of my gross earnings.
Of your gross earnings, thank you. And there is an ad fund as well, the marketing co-op, which is 3% of the gross earnings. So 15% goes to the franchisor for all the support we provide. 3% goes to an advertising co-op to help the franchisees grow their business.
Okay.
The 15% at first blush might seem a little high. Frankly, I've been a consultant and worked with many franchisors. It is above average. But the amount, it ultimately comes down to how much am I making, the franchisee, and how much am I ultimately giving to the franchisor. See, we're not a brick and mortar that may be doing $2 million a year and paying 6% royalty,
right,
which I can't do the math, but you know that's a lot of money. Our franchisee, if you're doing $400,000 a year and paying 15%, it's only $60,000 to the franchisor. I heard a franchisee say recently, do I think I can make 18% more money with these guys versus doing it myself? Candidate laughed out loud. Of course I can.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. I remember years and years ago when I was researching the royalty and what franchisees thought about paying a royalty, a real estate franchisee said to me, and at the time he was paying about a 10% royalty, and he said, I don't like writing that check every month, but without the franchisor, I wouldn't have the money in my checking account to send them the 10% because I know because of their name, their brand, their marketing, their support, I'm making a whole lot more money this way than if I were on my own or in some other situation. Mm-hmm. So a royalty is a good insurance for a franchisee with a responsible franchisor. And ERA, I believe, is a world class in terms of responsibility. You really seem to care about franchisees and how they perform and the tools that you give them to go out and do their job. I think that's very important to people as well.
Thank you. I hear every day, John, just about every day, I'm talking to candidates that have significant business experience. Many of them consultants, many of them have been in the sales world, and you can pick any 24 reasons why they might hate their job or their previous career. But I say over and over, Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I wish I found you 10 years ago. I can focus on what I enjoy, make good money, sleep better at night, own it, not have to deal with all the junk I had at my previous career. Why didn't I find you a decade ago?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's Red Boswell, an expense reduction analyst, and thank you so much, Red, for spending this time with me today. I'm John Hayes. I blog at howtobuyafranchise.com. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to How to Buy a Franchise Show. If you want immediate assistance, visit howtobuyafranchise.com to contact Dr. John Hayes for a free consultation.